Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. And today we're going to create this beautiful typographic compositions, and I'm going to walk you through the setup of the system where you're going to have interactive control using keyboards, as well as walk you through the setup of 3D camera, material, and geometries in Chat Designer. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Okay, so I'm going to add in a box soft into the projects over here. And the size over here, I'm going to increase it by 4. Okay. And then I'm going to add in a font soft into the scenes. Now, basically, SOP is the surface operators, and it's the way that Touch Designer works to be able to use to be able to work with 3D. Okay, and if you click on the view active on any SOP over here, you'll be able to preview the 3D objects. Okay, and you're going to see also, if you zoom in, you're going to see X, Y, Z axis as well, and the units on each of this axis. And a little bit about the viewport in the SOP over here. You'll be able to preview the 3D objects by clicking on the viewport, and then if you right click, you'll be able to see wireframe or shaded view, okay, which is very useful when you want to visualize complex geometries. And if you click on display option or press P, you'll be able to display the points as well, normals, X, Y, Z coordinates of each of these points as well. All right. So just a little bit about the view over here. And when you work with complex 3D objects, sometimes you zoom in a lot. All right. It's cause problem with navigations. You can press H. It's going to center the objects back to the center view of the operator. Okay. After you're done, you can just click on view actives and exit. Is that okay? And over here, I'm going to switch back to shaded views, okay, by pressing W on my keyboard. Now, I need to rotate this object by 90 degrees because the way that we are going to construct this tunnel is basically 4 rectangles, okay, 2 on the top, sorry, 2, 1 on top and 1 at the bottoms, and 2 on the 2 sides of the tunnels. And then we're going to copy it, okay, multiply it to the back, okay, to create this kind of tunnel effects. Okay, so we need to rotate this objects on the z-axis basically. Okay, the z-axis is blue line over here, and we need to rotate it on the z-axis. So we're going to click on transform, and then we go into z-axis over here, rotate by 90 degrees. Okay, put this one down, and we need to merge these 2 objects together to be able to combine them basically. Plug this box and transform over here, and you're gonna see that we're creating a cross over here because basically the locations, okay, the location of this 2 object is the same. Okay, if you take a look at the wireframe and the coordinates over here, you're gonna see that these 2 objects intersect in the middle because the origin of the object is at this 0, 0, 0 on the XYZ axis over here. Okay, So we need to translate or move these objects on the these objects over here on the right, okay, or minus on the x-axis, okay. So we're going to click on the transform, and then on translate, I'm going to put in -1, okay, and go back to the merge over here. Going back to shaded views, you're going to see it move by 1 unit on the x-axis, -1 unit on the x-axis. Okay. Use the mouse over here to position them as we like. Okay, so I'm going to put it here. And then on the y-axis, I want to put it down as well. Okay. We need to create the tunnel. Put it down. And then on the other side, now the task is pretty simple. You just need to have the same configurations, but inverses on the x-axis, on the other side of the x-axis, which is positive. So I'm going to transform, I'll go over here. I'm going to copy this one. Okay, Control C and Control V. Paste it over here. And instead of the translate of -2.5, I'm going to put it on positive 2.5. Okay. And I'm going to plug this one in again, and you see what we got. Right. Almost like a gate now. We need the same boxes over here. To copy the transform, C, V, and then I'm going to move this objects, translate. I'm going to reset the rotation. So I want it to rotate. I want to move it on the y-axis so that it's moved downwards like this. All right, so I'm going to move this one downwards. You see nothing happened because I haven't plugged this transform into the objects. You're going to see it's over here. We need to reset this one as well to 0, and then we move this one downwards at -4. Okay, so we need we have the structure over here, and then next thing we want to do is we want to duplicate the structure that we have just created. I'm going to press tab, and then we can use copy this object. You see, if you zoom into the copies over here, you see nothing happens because number of copies is set to 1, so there's no copies. We type in 15 over here, nothing happens again, because for the very simple reason that we need to move the translation of the objects on the z-axis to be able to visualize. Okay, so I'm going to click on the z-axis over here and increase it, and you're going to see the copies appearing. Okay, and increase it, and you're going to see it. Put it at 2, and this is what we have. We have a tunnel, but it's on the positive, which is on the. So this one is on the front of the camera, and basically we wanted to give this -2 so that the object is on the other side of the geometries. Basically now, if you take a look at the objects, it's moving, it's being replicated on the negative side of the axis. This now we're pretty done with the geometries, and it's pretty simple. We have an object that is the structure over here we view with just one simple box, rotate, translate, different time, and then we arrive at this result, and then we copy it 15 times. Pretty easy. Now the next task, which is a little bit more complicated, which is mapping the texture on top of this 3D geometry. The Type Designer, to be able to do that, we need to use the texture sop. So I'm going to plug in texture sop. It's nothing because we haven't got any texture. To be able to work with texture, we need a top as the texture. Change the fonts over here. Increase this one so that it's fit with the texture, basically. It's over here. So format, I'm going to switch this one to 32-bit float. And resolutions, I'm going to increase this one as to increase the size to 1024 by 1024. Okay. Increase the size. Just to avoid any kind of pixelations on the edges of the text over here. So, afterwards, I can put this to an MAT or MAT. MAT here is the category of material families in Type Designer, and basically it has different settings. But for the simplicity of this tutorial, I'm going to use only constant. So I'm going to put the text over here to the see nothing happens because we need to displace or tell the program to map the texture on the objects. Okay, we have that. So we need to make use of the over here. I'm going to sort material. And the sort over here is very useful if you want to test UV unwrapping of the 3D objects in Type Designer. Okay. And we can drag and drop the constant over here to the material. Material. Okay. You can see the text over here being mapped into this 3D objects. Okay. We go into the 3D objects. This is what we get. Okay, an XRP text that is being stretched. Okay, this is not what we want. We want to be able to customize the mapping of the text in a way that it's going to look much better without stretching. And if we go back to the here, we go into transform. Before we go into transform, we need to switch the texture type into. As we switch this one into phase, basically telling Type Designer that okay, I need to map this texture, this material to all of the faces, available faces of the geometries. Okay, and this is what we got. And you see the texture being displayed incorrectly. Translation of the texture. Going to transform to fix that. So we need this texture to be in the middle. Logically, we want to move this one on the y-axis. To move this one down. And we want to center this. You're gonna see that we need to plug the texture into the merge over here to tell the geometry to actually take the UV unwrapping of the texture SOP. To remove this connection between the first object and the merge over here, and you're gonna see now we have the texture being plugged directly into the merge over here, and I wanted to preview this material. Okay, so I can plug this soft into the end of the copies, and this is what we have texture on. Okay, you're gonna see that only the top objects over here has texture. We need to put the texture over here to before any kind of connection between the first texture, the first objects to the transform over here, so to the merge over here copy. Basically, if we put the texture at the beginning of the chain, it's basically tell UV unwrapping of this object or the mapping of this texture on this object is going to follow, is going to apply to all of the object that is of the original objects, a child of the original objects. All right, so we can plug this one into transforming step. One by one, you're going to see this problem. We go into the material, this edge, this is what we have. We can go to the objects and see this. All right. So this is basically the way that you can map texture to an object. All right. But now to be able to render this one as a video or image, okay, we need to set up a networks of renders. Okay, and the material over here is not the network of renderings. Okay, so I'm going to set up the networks over here to be able to set up a network of renderings. I'm going into the geometries over here, and I can add in a comp to find geometries. And basically, if I drag and drop the geometries over here, you're going to see that the geometry over here is basically a compositions or comp that Type Designer use to store any kind of 3D geometries. And by default, it's going to display this torus over here. I don't know why they do it, but basically, we need to go inside this object, delete the torus, and then we go into in and into the object. So into the windows over here. And now if you go back one level by pressing U, okay, you're gonna see there's an inlet or input on the geometry. Plug this one in. Okay? And you see nothing happens. Nothing is visible. Because if we double click on this, okay, the object has been input, but this has not been rendered. So we need to enable display it, render. Okay. And then we go up one level. Now the object sits in the geometry. Okay. Now, if you find this method a little bit too complicated, you can just shortcut by hover the mouse in the middle of the objects that you want to render. Normally the end of the chains, soft chains, and then you click on it, and then you press tab. Click on geometry. It's going to automatically add in a comp with the last stop that you click on, right? So just to explain that, the geometry composition over here, I'm going to delete this one and continue with this. Um, Next step, we need a camera also in the com. Okay, so the camera over here is a uh, then a we need to tell the geometries over here that hey, we're going to render this geometry with the material. So we drag and drop constant to the geo, release it, and you're going to see meta material over here. Click on it, and basically it's going to map the objects on the geometries over here. Now you wonder why the material soap is available. Now the material soap is a very quick way for you to preview the mapping of a material on an objects instead of setting all of this camera and renders, etc. Okay, and then we need basically a render tops. Okay, to be able to render out the, so now you're gonna see that this step the render is going to appear, but it's being cut because of the camera over here is zooming in into the geometries. You can reset this view and go into view active, turn it on, test it, keyboards. So now you'll be able to render out the we can preview these animations by dividing the screens, and then I'm going to put so up for example, to basically add in an into the so here basically because of the probably has been set to R1, so by default you have this output geometries. Okay, now click on panels, I'll be able to preview. Okay, so now we got the visual on the panels over here. And it's look a little bit static. We can go into the box over here and on the rotate over here. If we rotate this object over time, on the x-axis, we'll have the looping animations of the objects being rotated 360 degrees. This is what's going to happen. You're going to see the box very slowly move around. And if we multiply it by 10s, for example, it's going to be more easier to see. All right, maybe I put this as 20. Okay, this is basically it. The animations over here will be looping, and it's going to continue generating this beautiful, trippy animations. And I can also duplicate the number of copies to 30 just to make the tunnel a little bit, 45, for example, a little bit deeper. Okay, so for the new visual over here, I'm going to add in a rectangle. And I'm going to put in a texture again to unwrap this rectangle, and I'm going to put in a new rectangle, put this one through texture, and then I'm going to use the material over here, but instead of using the same material, I'm going to duplicate this one. All right, and I'm going to rename this one as tunnel, cube tunnel, let's put it that way. And then over here, yes to all. And over here, I'm going to call this new one. I'm going to call this new one wave stripe. Okay. And then I'm going to use another material, soft, to basically unwrap this or map this material over here. Just going to drag and drop it here, drag it to the material, and again in the transform I'm going to 3. All right, so this is mapping on the plane, and over here we can copy it on the x-axis. This one pretty simple. I'm going to give it 5, and then I'm going to copy this one by 5, and I'm going to put it on top of each other. So translate 1, and then I'm going to increase the value here a little bit. Okay. And just to make things a little bit, spice things up a little bit, I'm going to add in also a noise chop in the middle. Okay, so what is the noise chop over here? Is basically adding a noise into the animations over here, and basically displays the 3D objects using a noise. And it's similarly to the noise top that in my previous tutorial I have explained about it. And basically you can just move the seat around, and it's gonna change the displacement, or over here with period, if you reduce it, it's gonna make the period, if you increase it, it's gonna make the displacement more intense, but if you reduce it, it's going to reduce everything, the speed basically. Okay. And then we face a problem over here, which is you're gonna see that the rectangle over here looks very stiff. Okay. And if you take a look at the 3D renders of this object, you're gonna see that basically it's just moving like a piece of plastic. Okay, how does it happen? Because for the very simple reason that there's not enough geometry to displace these objects. Okay, we need more polygons for this object to be wavy. Okay, and as a result, I'm going to add in a subdivide. All right, now the subdivide over here basically is going to convert, not convert, but it's going to basically add more geometry into a existing geometries. Okay, it's going, that's why it's called subdivide, because it's going to basically make a medium point between the geometries, cut it in half, and the more you increase the depth over here, the more you're gonna see the object becomes smoother because there's more geometries. Okay, let me just show you this directly in the If you go into the viewer actives over here, and you press W for the wireframe, and then you go into here, and you press W for the wireframe, you're going to see by the depth of 1. This is what I'm talking about, subdividing the geometries in the middle of the object itself. And you can just, if you increase the value, you're going to see more grid being made. Okay, so this is basically making the objects subdivide into many more geometries. And if we go into this, we see the wireframe. Now we have the noise. We increase this value more, you're going to see it's become more and more smooth, right? And the displacement over here is more present. If you take a look at it, see, okay, on the z-axis. Okay, so now we can move down the harmonics a little bit. Move down the amplitude a little bit, just to reduce the intensity of the displacement. And you're going to see that it's less intense. Okay, and we can preview these objects before we plug it into a geo. So this is what we got, the result. Okay, and in Touch Designer, okay, to be able to render different objects, okay, the best way you can do it is using different geometries, okay, and then render it with different camera settings and different render top. Okay, to be able to render out this object and make this kind of alternating between many visual, I'm going to copy this settings over here from Geo. I'm going to copy this last part, okay, Geo, camera, and render, except for the out over here. I'm going to Control C, Control V, and then I'm going to put it here, and I plug this one directly into the geometries. So now you're going to see the geometry being rendered, okay, and you're going to see an old renders of the old objects, because for the very simple reason that you need to tell the render that, okay, we have a new camera over here, you should use this camera to render, and not the old camera, because you see the connections over here, the render is still connected back to the old camera, all right, to the old geometries. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the render, press P, and then on the camera over here, I will make sure that this one is rendering camera 2, and the geometry over here, instead of this asterisk over here, which means that it's going to render everything that is in the 3D view, okay, in the 3D space of the program. And just to visualize the 3D space of the program, you can go into this geometry viewer, all right, and then you're going to see that it's actually 2 objects, okay, on top of each other in the geometry view over here. Okay, and basically in Touch Designer, if you want to hide or unhide an object without having to render it, you need to actually manually disable it in the geo over here. So for the geo one over here, I'm going to click on the display over here. I'm going to check just to make it disappear from the geo over here, and you're going to see now, even on the cam one, it see only the geometries, but basically because of the render is still on, this geometry is still rendering exactly this camera looking at the geometry that we have set up before. Okay, so on the output level, there's nothing changed. Okay, and this is just to preview the camera easier. All right, and then over here, I'm gonna see that on the render over here, I need to actually change the camera settings. Okay, I need the camera first to look at the geometry, so I'm going to go into view active, press H, and then it's going into the camera. Okay, and I can zoom in, all right, to see the camera a little bit better. And position the camera basically. Okay, press H on your keyboard to center and then I can use the right mouse button to position and because we have make this one into a 3D object, so I think it's better that we change the view a little bit downwards just to make everything a little bit easier, just to make things a little bit more 3D. Okay, so something like this, and I'm gonna probably render increase the noise here a little bit just to make the displacement of these objects look a little bit more 3D. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the amplitude over here, increase that a little bit, something like this. Okay, could be nice, and maybe the period could be changed. Okay, so something like this, and then this is what I get. Okay, and then I'm just this is the render that I get as well. Okay, now the renders over here, you're gonna see that it's displaying. Okay, both of the geometries over here because of this asterisk over here, and basically we need to remove this asterisk, and instead of rendering the asterisk here means basically it's rendering all of the geometries in the displays over here. Okay, so I'll go back to the panels over here and geometries over here. I can put this one into geometries and geo2. Okay, that's the name of the geometries. Okay, so basically we have the second visual done. All right, and next thing I want to do is I want to set up a system where I can actually switch between this visual. So I'm going into top, switch, and I'm going to put it here, put this one in the switch, this one in the switch as well. And then I'm going to plug this one to the output. Okay, now just as usual, I'm going to set up a keyboard by using keyboard chops, keyboard in, and then I'm going to put in cow chop. All right, so basically the keyboards over here is if I press the keyboard over here, there will be a values, and the cow chops over here is basically adding one values every time that I press the key. And if you go into the key, the cow property over here, you're going to see the limit over here. And I can actually limit this one to a loop, okay, depending on how many outputs I have. So I'm going to leave it at 10 for now, but we can always go back and modify the number so that every time we press number, it's going to go up to that number and then return. All right, so that should be the cow tops, and I'm going to click on view active, drag and drop it to the index over here, chop reference. Okay, so now it's at value of 2. So if we press this Again, nothing happens, but if we go back to 0, it's going to display this visual. 1 is the renders over here. So this number 0 and 1 corresponding to the values over here. The number index over here is at the moment with decimals, but we can get rid of it by going into the count, and then in the comments we can uncheck time slide and check it again. Okay, and then now if you press the button, it's going to give you just number without decimal. All right, so that's about the setting up for the switching of the visual over here. And then next thing we want to do is we want to recreate the next visual. Now if we come back over here, I'm going to add in another this time I'm going to add in a sphere. All right, and I'm going to add in a grid. Okay, so the grid over here is very similar to the rectangle, but basically you have more control over the grids and you have a built-in subdivisions. You're gonna see that's actually made up of 20 rows and 20 columns. I can reduce and modify this value of subdivisions as I like. Okay, basically, okay, it's a more complex rectangle. Okay, now I can plug this grid into the copy soap. Okay, just to show you that the power of the copy soap over here. So the copy soap over here, if you applied it with an objects as another soap, plugging it into it over here, is basically going to tell this function that, okay, apply this grid onto this spherical sphere. Okay, so basically you have this all of this beautiful instancing, okay, instances or copy of the grid over here from the objects. All right, so you have this copy, and if you go into the wireframe, this is what is it? Okay, so if I reduce the number of grid over here, okay, you're gonna see this thing happens. All right, very beautiful grids. And then you can but if you want to fit everything together, because now if you take a look at it, this looks nice, glitchy, everything, but at the same time is it would cause some problem with rendering later, and we want to keep this number, the size over here, smaller. Okay, so that we can fit everything into this objects. And of course the sphere over here, if you take a look at it, we give it a, if you go into details, the reason why it's very dense over here is because of the row and the columns values over here. So we reduce the rows, you're going to see there's less overlapping happens. Okay, and put this one over here, and I can scale down this object a little bit more just to visualize. Just to make everything fit. All right, so make it fit like this. Okay, and now we can just texturize this grid over here by adding a texture. All right, and I'm going to add in a material at the end over here just to preview the settings of the material. Okay, and I can copy the wave stripe over here. And I can drag and drop this into the material. And for this one, I'm going to call this grid on sphere. All right. And then I'm going to plug this one directly into the color maps. Into the material, basically. So now we're going to see the text displays on the grid over here. When cost is being displayed, we will unwrap first the just a grid, and then we can apply it to the whole thing. Okay, so the scale over here, and what if I increase the size to 1? Okay, so this one is fitting perfectly. Okay, so now I can plug this one into the sphere. Okay, and I have a sphere something like this. Now if I visualize the wireframe, you're gonna see that it's actually overlapping a lot. Okay, all this, and as a result, I'm going to reduce the number of grid over here. All right, so the columns, I will reduce it to 9 just to make everything easier. And then let's preview this one. Okay, and we have this object over here is copying on the sphere, all right? But you're gonna see that it's copying. If we increase the values of primitive per points over here, you're gonna see that it's increased the values. And we go back to the sphere over here instead of the mesh. If we give it a polygons, okay, it's going to make the sphere looks like this. And the mesh over here, the polygons, the Bezier. If we go back now, if we go back to the mesh over here and we change this one to polygon, you're going to see the distributions of the grid over here looks more nicely. Okay, it's because basically it's converting this object into trees, okay, or triangle instead of quads. And I can maybe I will increase the details on the objects over here just to make everything looks a little bit more trippy. So something like this can be. Okay, so something like this. Or we can just go back to the mesh over here, and we increase the number of the columns. It's gonna going to increase the values to 15s, and the one on top is 15 as well. Okay, so basically we'll have this objects. Okay, and if we copy and paste this setup, 3D setup over here, again, camera, render, and the geo we can put and paste it here. All right, and we need to drag and drop this value into the geo, the material into the geo material. Okay, and then we need to change the render as well. Render cam3 geo3, yes. And it's still displaying the previous geometry. It is because need to look at geo3, yes, geometry. Camera is camera 3. Okay. And over here we can put an out. No, not put in out. I'm going to put in a. Over here the render is still the same. It's because going to the renders over here is cam3 geo3. Yes, but because this object in the geo2 is still displaying, so I'm going to turn off the geometry on geometry tool. Okay, and basically I need to plug the copy tree over here to the geometries. Okay, so now we have the objects render. All right, and then I'm going into the view H, and I'm going to zoom in when I see it. Okay, and over here this is what we got for the renders. Okay, and I can zoom out a little bit because basically I want to fit this cube inside of the frame over here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Move this one up. Center this one basically. Okay, and over here I can see the renders, and you're going to see that it's actually obscuring a lot of the texture over here. This is because of the material settings, and we need to basically tell the designer that, all right, this object is has a very special material, and to be able to do that we need to go into legacy alpha behavior, sorry, blending transparency, and turn this one on, and as a result you're going to see that the texture now will be turned into transparent, and it's basically letting the and we can turn on legacy alpha behavior as well. It's going to turn on, and depth test, if you close it, it's basically going to remove, you see, remove all of this border around the texture. Okay, so basically this is the render that we like. And just to make things a little bit more interesting, I can go into the texture over here, give the, if I move this translations, you're going to see the text moving around. So I'm going to add in an ABS time dot second to make this one move around. All right, and maybe on the y-axis as well, ABS time dot seconds. Okay, so let's move around like this. Add a box. Okay, and I can increase the size of this one to 4. Okay, and then I'm going to add in another group. Okay, and basically what is group? Group is the selection group is the selection function in Tab Designer. And basically the way that Tab Designer select, it's not as intuitive as Blender or other program where you have box selects, you have a mouse, you drag a area select, and that's it. In Tab Designer, you have to select using primitives or points. And let me demo this. Okay, now if you go into the box over here and you turn on viewer active, turn on points, okay, point numbers, you're gonna see that the numbers will be displayed over here. Okay, and if you zoom in, move around, you're gonna see all the points over here. If you press W or wireframe, you'll be able to see it. Basically, you're gonna visualize the points over here. Okay, and then in the group over here, all right, you can choose points and go into create numbers over here. Okay, but basically because the points in Tab Designer is overlapping, and this is because basically in every point that you see over here is actually a combination of 3 points corresponding to 2 edges that is going into this point over here. Okay, so that's why when you zoom in into the numbers, they seem to be overlapping. Okay, so to avoid all of these confusions, okay, I will switch this back to primitives. And primitives in Tab Designer is basically the faces over here, or the quads over here that you're seeing. If you press the middle mouse buttons on every sub, you're going to see this made up of 24 points, 6 primitive or 6 faces, and 24 vertices, 6 polygon. Okay, so over here I'm going to choose primitive, and on create over here I'm going to choose number. Okay, then over here press W, I'll be able to visualize it. Group by patterns, and I'm going to press P to visualize the, instead of the points number, I'm going to switch to primitive numbers. Okay, it's easier to visualize. And now you're going to see numbers display. 1, 2 is the front, 3 is the side, 5 is top, 0 bottoms, right? And we need only the face on the top and the front, so 2, 5. Okay, I'm going to type in 2, 5, put this one over here, and I'm going to put this one through a delete, and put this one through the deletes over here. Okay, nothing happens because for the deletes over here we need to select the groups, which is the group name that we have set over here, group 1. Okay, so group 1, and you're gonna see that it's deleting these objects, the top and the front of the geometries, but because the operation is here is delete selected. What if we want to delete the non-selected? Okay, it's going to delete basically the other inverse the selection basically. Okay, entities primitive. Okay, and that should be it. Okay, and then we can plug this one into a basically we can texturize this one first. Okay, so we're going to put in a texture. This one over here, and before here, and then we use the material again to visualize the UV unwrap of these objects. And we can use copy this material again, and I'm going to rename this one as stair. Okay, and then drag and drop this one to the material as usual, just to visualize the UV map. Okay, and you see that it's giving me this texture. Okay, because the blending mode is on, so I'm going to turn on the blending transparency, just make everything clearer to see. And then on the texture over here, instead of XYZ normalize face. Okay, basically there's some legacy alpha off as well, and I need to switch on depth test on, because basically if I don't switch this on, this material is going to be half transparent basically. On the texture, I'm going to move this texture down a little bit, maybe, and then I'm going to plug this one. Actually, it's already been plugged, so now what I want to do is I'm going to just copy the geometries and the setup of 3D. C, Control V, and then I'm going to drag and drop this stairs into the geometries as the material stairs, and it's still displaying the O geo because I have to plug this one in. Okay, over here I missed a tab step. I need to add in a copy. Okay, so we need to copy this objects by let's say it maybe 6 times, and then I'm going to move it on the y-axis, z-axis by 1. Okay, so basically I'm creating the system of stairs, and it's inverse. All right, so I need to make this one to -1. Okay, so basically push this staircase to the right. Okay, and then this is the staircase, and then we can animate the texture over here by basically enter this value over here is gonna run like a Mac cube. Seconds, and this one's gonna run over time. Okay, so this is the staircase visual. And then next thing we want to do is we want to change the camera here. Of course, the old geometries here still displaying, so I'm gonna uncheck the geo, the display button on this geo. Okay, just to make sure that the cam here display the right. And then I'm going to press H, zoom in, and move this one something like this, just to give it a little bit of perspective, and over here the staircase is going to zoom out a little bit, move around it right here. Okay, and actually I want the staircase to go down, so I'm going to move the ABS time on the y-axis, and I would have a texture that go up, and maybe I want this to look like this, so the text can be visible, a little bit more visible. Okay, so this is the visual that we have created. I can zoom in just to make the composition looks a little bit nicer, and I can plug this one into the switch over here. All right, so now I have multiple visual in one compositions. Okay, so that should be it. And thank you for your attention. Remember to subscribe to my patrons. The files available over there. And if you subscribe, you have the access to the file as well, supporting my tutorials. Thank you.